All right, good morning. It is a Tuesday edition of Glenn Clark Radio. Today's show is brought to you by the all-new Ginsu Kamado Grill. It's the perfect ceramic tailgate or home grill for searing, baking, grilling, smoking, all kinds of food. GinsuGrills.com is the website. Save $100 when you use the code TAILGATE. Lots to do on the program today. In just a couple of minutes, the great Brenda Frese will join us. She's got 601 career wins, the 601st being her first ever win over UConn on Sunday. We will talk about that with Coach Frese. Later on in the program, Randy Cross joins us from CBS. We'll talk about the Navy situation, probably talk a little Ravens as well. Joe Serpico, PressBoxOnline.com, fantasy football analyst, will join us. We'll preview Waiver-Wire Wednesday. Are we picking up Brock Purdy? We're picking up Chigakonkwo, former Terp. We'll talk about that. And also a little bit later on this morning, our weekly college hoops conversation with Patrick Stevens. All of that on tap today. At the top, obviously wretched news this morning with the passing of Mike Leach. And it reminded me that I didn't get to chat about Grant Wahl yesterday either. So not to be negative or be a downer at the start of the show, but just something that I wanted to spend a minute on. One, I did not know Mike Leach well, but I reflected on, if we go back to 2010 when Mike Leach was out of coaching, there were a lot of Maryland football fans that wanted Mike Leach to be the next Maryland football coach. Of course, in hindsight, every Maryland fan was furious when the school fired Ralph Friedgen because they ended up having a very good season. But as you'll remember, going into that season, there had been a downswing in Maryland football, and there were a lot of fans who were desirous of Mike Leach being the guy. Mike Leach was working with a friend of mine named Ari on a project called Beyond You Sports, and I kind of had that twinkle in my eye, being an old radio person, like I could arrange something here to play into how much Maryland fans want Mike Leach, and I coordinated that Mike Leach would join us regularly on the old radio station that doesn't exist any longer. And that part was great. We split up the conversations. I know Thurl Nelson got to have a lot of them. We did a few in the afternoons. We moved it around, but Mike Leach was a regular that season. And then when Ralph Friedgen indeed was fired, I just remember having a lot of chats with Mike Leach. And, like, hilariously, when he didn't get the job, I just called and said, "Coach, what happened?" "I don't know. I guess they just don't like me." I mean, like, he was just such a special individual, man. Obviously as unique as everything that you have seen in interview clips over the years, and just wretched news for the sport, wretched news obviously for his family, for Mississippi State. Just a terrible, terrible day. But I was reminded that I wanted to take a minute also to talk about Grant Wahl, who lived in Baltimore for a number of years. Grant Wahl was he was previously a basketball writer for SI. Famously did the LeBron James cover story all those years ago, and started covering soccer, and no one is more synonymous. Like, here's what I would say. There are a lot of people, and I'm not trying to use this as a shot at anybody else, there are a lot of people in this business that want to be considered synonymous with the sport they cover. So much so that they're willing to kind of sell their souls in the process. They're willing to essentially allow journalism to be blended with being a PR mouthpiece for the sport they cover. And Grant Wahl was not that. Grant Wahl was fearless. Grant Wahl was brilliant. He was courageous. And on top of that, he was kind. Grant Wahl would call you when he was covering an event on the other side of the world. A World Cup qualifier going on in Costa Rica. I got time for a phone call. I got time to do an appearance. Grant Wahl was one of the kindest individuals I ever came across in this business. And he just so happened to also be brilliant. And one of the great sports journalists of an era. I don't know what the story is. I hope that it doesn't involve foul play. I hope that they get to the bottom of it. But I wish I would have taken the time yesterday to reflect on Grant Wahl, because Grant Wahl was a genius. A genius. Safe home, Grant Wahl. Safe home, Mike Leach. Sad day. Sad day in the sports community. It's never easy to go from that and make a quick transition, but alas, that's what we do. And this is not sad whatsoever, because what a stretch it's been for the University of Maryland women's basketball program. Brenda Frese got her 600th win on Thursday in dramatic fashion out at Purdue, and then, only followed it up with a massive victory over UConn, the first in school history. It is always a pleasure to be joined again here on the show by the head coach of the Terps. She is Coach Brenda Frese, and she's back with us now here on the program. Coach, it's Glenn. It is so great to catch up with you as always. Thank you for taking the time, and congratulations not only on a big win, but on a major milestone as well.
Oh, thank you, Glenn. And it really has been quite a week here at Maryland, and can't say enough about this team and just their fearlessness to go on the road and beat a veteran team like Purdue in dramatic fashion, the one I'll always remember for win 600, like you said, and then just the standard that's been set by UConn in the history of our game. So Sunday with 12,000 plus fans, it was an electric environment, and one we'll always remember.
Coach, what is it about this team that they have not blinked, right? Like UConn road wins. Obviously, the Notre Dame game was one of them. I watched the entirety of that game, and I was falling off my seat. It was never more than like a 5-point deficit or lead in that game. It was back and forth the entire time. What is it about this team that they have handled the big moments so far so well, and they have not – I know that there have been losses. I understand there are things you probably still want to clean up a bit, but they haven't blinked in these huge moments.
Yeah, I joke with them that they're the cardiac kids, and they like to have a lot of dramatic wins and games. But I think it's truly impressive. When you talk about because of this transfer portal that every coach has had to deal with, and 9 new players coming into our program, and really only 3 on the roster that have been here to return in that lineup. The injuries we've had, it says a lot about this group to be able to have these kind of wins on the road. You also had the Baylor win. So they've really come together when you talk about so many pieces and injuries we've been dealt with as well. And I think it really goes to show just what an incredible group this is, that they really have been fighting hard and, to be able to pull out some of the wins that they have.
Brenda, obviously it helps in those closing moments to have players with a killer instinct. We talked to Diamond last week. I mean, that was stone cold. And then you followed up with Shy against Purdue on Thursday night. Do you know, like, when the game's close at the end, do you have, and of course a big shot again late in the game on Sunday, right? Like, do you have this feeling in your mind like, yeah, we're good, I don't really have to stress too much about this?
It's definitely a feel within the game. You had that, game winner by Diamond with Notre Dame. So you would have thought at Purdue we were going to go back to her. She was struggling in that game. We were actually trying to go to Abby because she had really had an incredible game and she read the play correctly. And obviously Shy is having a monstrous sophomore season for us. So, these are the things where you're talking about within a team is you're just learning them every single practice and every single game. But I love their moxie and I love their confidence that they're playing with.
She is Brenda Frese. She's with us here on GCR. Coach, obviously the UConn thing, to your point, like they have been such a behemoth in the sport for so long, and you guys have had some great games, great atmospheres. Is there a monkey off the back type of feeling? And I know, like, heck, you gotta look at South Carolina and how difficult that mountain is to climb, right? But is there some sort of relief beyond just the excitement of a big win? Is there some sort of relief that comes with, hey, we don't have to hear anymore about how we can never get over the hump against UConn?
Yeah, well, I will say, we've been fortunate. We beat South Carolina in their own building, so that was a fun win way back with them. And, I do, like, obviously we've had a lot of competitive rosters here at Maryland, and typically when we play UConn, it's been a 6-point game
right
down to the wire. So, to have this team and this roster be able to pull out a win at home, it definitely is one that, it does. It allows your team to know and understand that, they can be extremely successful against anyone.
600 wins. I know we've done this a couple times. Obviously 500 was a big deal, but Like, does the number mean something to you in any sort of way, or really was it nothing more than like, yeah, we beat Purdue and we needed to go beat Purdue. We needed to get a Big Ten win. Like how does it work for you now? Do you enjoy it? Does it stand out in anything beyond just the win that you got that night?
It definitely makes you reflect. It makes you also understand, gosh, I've been in this a long time, and super grateful to Maryland and in my coaching path that I've been able to sustain. I think when I first came in, I was just hoping that I could, get a rollover of a contract and make it as a coach. But, I definitely think I take more time. Obviously, as you get older, you appreciate all the people that have been a part of it. And it's the players, your coaches, your support staff. And I think those are the memories that you take away. I mean, obviously this game and the schedule is relentless. You're on to, you beat UConn, now we're recruiting. It doesn't give you much time for pause. I keep telling my family we haven't even celebrated with a good glass of wine or dessert, but that'll be coming here over the holidays. But you definitely try to take those moments when you can.
I know we've talked a couple times the last couple years about how much more special it is given how old your boys are at this point, and them being around to be a part of it. And, of course, they've grown up, obviously, and everything you guys went through, and now they've grown up around this program. But being at this age now, like, is there something more meaningful about how much they understand of how special this is, what your program is doing, and these accomplishments of reaching like a 600 win? At a certain age, 600 isn't even a number that obviously, like, my kids are 5 and 7. They don't even really know what 600 means.
Right. It is. I'll say, my boys before the UConn game asked if they could come out and get on the court after we beat UConn. They get it. My boys get up early on Saturday mornings to come into practice now with me. They don't get up that early for school. My one wants to go recruiting with me this week. So it's really, really awesome this age that they're in, because they get it. They understand what mom does. They want to be a part of it. So it's something that I will always cherish, right now in this moment where they're at, for sure. They're 14 and they do kind of fully understand it. They'll send me threads off of social media. Have you seen this and that? And so it's great. Just really grateful for the time that I'm getting with them as teenagers.
We're just another few minutes here with Brenda Frese after Maryland got a huge win over UConn on Sunday. Coach, I'd said we talked to Diamond the other day, and I know you've got a team full of special players, and I want to ask you about that, but I want to start with just her, because you've had a lot of great players over the years, but boy, there is something about her that, between the killer instinct and just the way that she can take over a game. I know it's impossible to rank players against other players, but it really does seem like she has the chance to be among the greatest players in the history of the program, right?
She does, and she's going to be an unbelievable pro. She understands what it takes. I mean, she loves this game. I mean, obviously, she has that killer instinct, wants to take over, wants the responsibility, and that's what all the other greats here have had. They want to be the go-to player and take the clutch shot down the stretch. And obviously, you see the time she's put into her game. I mean, she's if anything, I always think she can do more. She's just so talented and so many skills on both ends of the floor, and I'm always just continuing to keep pushing for that greatness from her.
And for this team specifically, you mentioned, you drew something up for Abby. Ball goes to Shy. Like, the idea that you have someone that is that great, and yet it doesn't always have to go through her. The depth that you have amongst those top players and the number of players that you can count on, a thing or two about what it takes in order to win a national championship. Is it too, dumb radio guy of me to say that that's the type of thing that championship teams need to have, is both a truly great player and yet other players that you can definitely rely on in those biggest moments?
Yeah, you do. I've always said championship teams, and the ones we've had here in Maryland, you have to have 3 to 5 players that can average in double figures a game. Against UConn, we had 4. Their game plan was to, really collapse on Diamond and take 2 at her. And I thought she, really understood, like, getting the ball to her teammates, and they were able to carry that first half for her when she wasn't able to get a lot of shots and be a facilitator for us. And then when it was her moment to shine in the second half, I mean, she really came through.
All right, and then you referenced 12,000 people there at the game on Sunday. More than even so 600 wins. The reflection on where the program was when you arrived to having, and I know this is not the first, right? There were plenty of Duke games where they're just massive crowds. You guys have regularly been able to pack a huge building over the years. When you see something like that, how much more does that make you reflect on how far the program has come since you first arrived to be able to have days like that?
Yeah, no question. I mean, this is why I came here to Maryland. I knew from the past when Coach Weller was here and the success that they had, and this DMV area is a really special place. You have so many talented players and teams and just fans that love to come out and support this team. So, I love that they were able to come out and feel and see this atmosphere and how what this team, how incredible they are. And we're just hoping that, they continue to keep supporting, because it goes by fast. And I think we all saw during COVID when it was taken away from us and we couldn't be in person. It's pretty cool to be in environments like these that we were able to be a part of on Sunday.
I need to know before I let you go the story of the Ninja Turtle hat that you had on in the locker room. Is this a thing? Is this something that you've done before? Where did this come from?
It's definitely not a thing for the head coach. We always, we give out awards after every game. I think, at a program like Maryland, you're expected to win so many games. And I think it's important to celebrate every game and how hard it is to win the number of games we're supposed to. So we do these Tough Turf awards and give out different awards. And our ninja is kind of that person that, exemplifies the terrapin and everything that is around it. So the players and coaches thought on my 600th win that they wanted to be able to give it the ninja to Coach B.
That's
so
awesome.
That's where it came from.
I love that. I can't wait to show it to my sons because Raphael is their favorite Ninja Turtle, so they'll be very excited about it.
Love it.
Coach, congratulations on a great start. I know there's a lot more to do as you get into conference play more heavy here in a couple of weeks, but everything that you've done so far, it's been incredible. We're not surprised, obviously, by any of his success, but we're very happy for you, for your program. We can't wait to see what's coming up. Thank you, as always, for taking the time for us this morning.
All right. Thank you so much, and happy holidays.
Same to you. Coach Brenda Frese, University of Maryland. Been a nice little stretch for them. Some really big wins. Baylor, Notre Dame, now UConn. Obviously, a tremendous run at the beginning of the season for Brenda Frese and Maryland. Excited to see what's ahead for them. All right. It is a Tuesday edition of GCR. Today's show is also brought to you by the Baltimore County Police Department. If you were not able to get out for their event at the fairgrounds on Saturday, you did not miss your chance to help take care of the folks in this community. They are still collecting non-perishable food items and unwrapped toys throughout this week at the various precincts around Baltimore County, as well as right across the street at Glory Days Grill in Towson. So please get out, support what the Baltimore County Police Department is doing. Bring out some non-perishable food items, some unwrapped toys to any of the area precincts. Stop in, say hello, and want to be a part of the community. And you can also find out more if you're thinking about maybe a career change, if you have someone in your life that's struggling to launch maybe out of high school, that is taking a gap year and you're really starting to worry about it being sort of a gap life. Just maybe think about the Baltimore County Police Department. Join BaltimoreCountyPD.com is how you find out more. When we come back in, Randy Cross is going to join us from CBS, former Super Bowl champion. We'll get his thoughts on Ken Niumatalolo's departure at Navy, probably talk some Ravens as well. That's on the way as we continue on a Tuesday edition of Glenn Clark Radio. Looking for a simple holiday meal? Try Chick-fil-A catering. From Chick-fil-A nuggets to mac and cheese, enjoy a variety of tray options sized perfectly for your get-together. Order through the Chick-fil-A app and bring smiles to your family gathering. Availability and order requirements vary. See restaurant for details.
Come experience Maryland's #1 sportsbook this NFL season at the FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel, the ultimate place for any sports enthusiast. Take advantage of our 24/7 kiosks, massive video screens, and watch all the action from the best seat in the house. With more money paid out than anyone around, make every moment more at the new FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel in Hanover, Maryland. Please play responsibly. Gambling problem? Please call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit mdgamblinghelp.org.
The Baltimore County Police Department is hiring. Entry-level officers start at close to $59,000 a year with a $10,000 bonus. Some restrictions apply. Plus a great retirement plan, medical, dental, and vision insurance, advancement to specialized units, tuition reimbursement, 15 sick days earned per calendar year, and even further incentives for military members and veterans. If you have a passion for service and want a career for life, visit joinbaltimorecountypd.com or call 410-887-5542. You must be a United States citizen, possess a valid driver's license, and have a high school diploma or GED equivalent. The Baltimore County Police Department is an equal opportunity employer.
Make the most out of every day in your Toyota RAV4. Available in hybrid or gas-only models. A RAV4 can get you where you want to go in style. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new RAV4s from your local Toyota dealer today.
Need a last-minute gift for a kid in your life? How about a membership to the Retriever Kids Club? It includes free youth admission to all regular season UMBC home games, plus a t-shirt and a drawstring backpack. Membership is only $35. It's a great deal, makes a tremendous holiday gift. Visit umbcretrievers.com/kids club for more info. Membership is for kids 12 and under. The Retriever Kids Club. Find out more, umbcretrievers.com/kids club.
The latest edition of PressBox is available now. On the cover, New Maryland basketball coach Kevin Willard sits down with Stan Charles and Glenn Clark to discuss the situation he inherited in College Park and how he plans to get the program turned around. Also, inside, we introduce you to men's and women's college basketball players from all of the teams in the area. And Bo Smoka profiles Ravens receiver Devin Duvernay. PressBox is available for free at over 500 area locations, including 60 Royal Farm stores, and you can always find the entire edition as well as the best daily coverage of the Orioles, Ravens, and Terps at PressBoxOnline.com.
Experience the best in Kamado Grilling, a complete outdoor cooking appliance. The Ginsu Kamado Grill allows anyone to sear, grill, bake, and smoke all types of food. Designed for efficiency and function, the Ginsu Kamado Grill upholds the enduring legacy of the iconic Ginsu brand. The Ginsu Kamado Grill is perfect to cook all year round, is great for parties, and ideal for tailgating with your friends. Reserve your Ginsu Kamado Grill today at ginsugrills.com and get $100 off on your pre-order when you use the promo code TAILGATE. That's ginsugrills.com. Reserve yours today.
Join Glenn at halftime of every Ravens game for the Project Game Day halftime show at facebook.com/PressBoxSports. We apologize in advance. There's not much we can do about his face.
All right, back in here on GCR as we continue on a Tuesday edition of the program. Today's show, or, how about just a reminder this time, because we're all enjoying sports betting. Well, most of us are enjoying sports betting, and it can always be fun, but there are dangers to it as well. Gambling should be fun, but you should also set a limit and stay within it. And remember that if you or a loved one has a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER 24/7 or go to helpmygamblingproblem.org for free confidential services. No updates yet on Tyler Huntley from John Harbaugh yesterday, and I get it. This is kind of unique. It's not like an injury. This is the concussion protocol. You're in protocol till you're not in protocol. John attempted after the game to sort of assuage and say, well, look, he did the months backwards. We're good, which, as we learned on our post-game show, not as easy as you think it is if you try to do it fast. If you try to do it fast, you're going to get tripped up. That's the way it's going to go. That's not the way that this works. It's not, hey, he's feeling good, he's going to play. He's either going to be cleared or he's not. It's just as simple as that. There was a weird report out of Pittsburgh that was going around yesterday that said something like, Anthony Brown was so bad in warmups that the Ravens had their long snapper take over. I have absolutely zero idea what to make of that, and I don't even really want to respond to it. But I think we all are going to feel a little bit differently if Anthony Brown has to play in this game on Saturday than even if Tyler Huntley can go. So we will continue to monitor it. At some point this week, either Tyler Huntley will be cleared or he won't be. It really is that simple. There is not much more to be gauged from, today, how did he feel? It's not an injury. It doesn't matter. This is the way the concussion protocol works in the NFL. So every day, you'll be looking for an update on that. And I think if Tyler Huntley can play, not even Lamar Jackson, but even if Tyler Huntley can play, I think Ravens fans will be far more confident going into the game in Cleveland on Saturday. And, of course, we did the math yesterday, and if the Ravens can keep winning, if they can win out, not easy, but if they can win out, and the Bengals were to lose to the Bills in Week 17, then the Ravens will have clinched the AFC North by the time that Week 18 game is played. They would not even have to play their regulars in that game if they wanted to maybe rest up for the playoffs. Joining us now, a man who has been around Navy football for a long time, working with CBS Sports as a color analyst for Navy games, of course, also a 3-time Super Bowl champ. It is always a pleasure to welcome back Randy Cross to the program. Randy, it's Glenn back in Baltimore. It's good to chat with you. Thank you, as always, taking a couple of minutes for us this morning.
No problem at all. No problem. It's tis the season for kind of sad news in general.
Yeah.
What now with the Mike Leach thing going down too?
Yeah, you know what? Before we get to Coach Ken, because you're right. Obviously, it pales in comparison. Losing sort of a legend. What Mike Leach was, what he represented for college football, his willingness to kind of take on the NCAA over the years. Can you put into words what Mike Leach has meant to this sport?
Well, I don't think it's an overstatement to say he and Hal Mumme kind of dragged major college football and now the NFL into the kind of 7-on-7 world we're living in. I mean, the spread, whatever name you wanted to give it, the catchy little title.
Air Raid.
Air Raid. You go back into the days of the run and shoot with June Jones and that ilk, Mouse Davis and Jerry Glanville. And I think what Hal Mumme and Coach Leach did, starting years and years ago as assistants and then moving to what they did at Texas Tech, and then Mumme was at Kentucky. I mean, it's still going on now. I mean, Matt Mumme, his son, is at Colorado State doing the same sort of stuff. And, that impact of what Mike Leach has done, with this air raid offense was felt profoundly by football, and is still being, felt by the way that people play. And that's just that. I mean, that's not even putting into the formula his legacy as far as his personality and his sort of his joy and love of life and willingness to express kind of how he feels. I think was so refreshing for a football coach.
He was quite the character. I had many opportunities to chat with him over the years. It was a joy.
Yep.
It is to your point, it is a wretched day in our sport and in the country to lose a character and a man like Mike Leach. It is just a truly wretched day. Obviously it pales in comparison, but to your point, we share your disappointment, we share your frustration. When you see this news on Sunday about Ken Niumatalolo, Randy, what's the immediate thought that runs through your mind?
It was a sad thing to see happen. It's as good as they were for an extended period of time. The record over the last few years, especially with, I really thought what happened in the COVID years, and those records would kind of be mitigated by, what happened before and sort of looking forward as to what this program has become over the years that Ken has been the head coach. He produces incredible men. He produces guys that are well-rounded. I think he produced the kinds of players, the kind of students, the kind of people that any university would be proud much less a national academy, of the armed forces. And you could tell from the reaction around the Navy football community how well loved Ken was and how well appreciated he was as a head coach. And, it's obviously it's going to be up to him as to what his next moves are going to be and what he wants to do. His contract and the years remaining, that's kind of a fact. That's what's going to happen there. But I really don't look at college football as being complete right now if you don't have people like Ken Niumatalolo involved in it, at a high level. He's just first class, Christian gentleman, coached his guys the right way. And, I think he'll be remembered for all the positive things and all the great things. Did they lose Saturday? Yeah. Did they lose because of a couple bad mistakes that happened? Yes. Was this the kind of year that they all wanted? Hell no. Nobody wants a record like this in a year like this, especially when you start off losing to Delaware. But no, I don't think it diminishes what he accomplished at Navy with, literally, if you're good at a naval academy, and we've seen Jeff Monken and Troy Calhoun pull off the same sort of things here at the other academies, you're competing at the highest level with one arm tied behind your back.
No question.
In major college football. And that's the way it is, especially in these days of NIL and transfers and everything else. You're competing with the highest types of football, the Notre Dames and everybody else, and giving them the advantage from the first whistle.
And even worse in the pandemic, obviously, as, of course, all these other programs, even at Air Force, right? Like they were able to do turnbacks and have fifth-year guys, and yet, Navy had to keep going out there with a young team and, still came away with like a big win at UCF a couple weeks ago and, still nearly came back to beat Notre Dame in Baltimore before that. And it's very frustrating.
Well, how many other football teams in the country were basically under lock and key?
Right. Correct.
Like that team was for all that time period.
Yep.
Not able to physically do the practice. I mean, all that. But that's aside from that. I think that's kind of a distraction as to what he'll be remembered for by the Navy football community.
Randy Cross is with us here on GCR. Randy, I asked this question. So let's just take Chet Gladchuck, and I'm not trying to fight with Chet Gladchuck, but he says, hey, our expectation is winning Commanders and Chiefs trophies and getting bowl eligible, winning 6 games. Is it practical? I think part of what you just alluded to is part of why I was so enamored by, Coach Ken. Not only, to your point, the quality of human that he is, which is almost unlike anything I've ever seen in this business, but he did it while having a standard that was truly absurd for an academy program of success. Is it reasonable to have that standard? Is it reasonable for the expectation that at a service academy competing in a conference like the American to be, can the next coach really be expected to constantly win 6 games? Or is it so remarkable what Ken Niumatalolo did that it skewed what reasonable expectations should be in an academy?
Well, first of all, the other academies have managed to do it. So why would Navy be an exception, from that in that regard? And I think part of that is born of the fact that you've got a couple of coaches like Jeff Monken and Troy Calhoun that are pretty extraordinary football coaches and great recruiters and everything else. I think it is realistic. I think it is fair. It was close to fair as life gets these days. Mm-hmm. It goes with what they want and what they should expect when you put a football team on the field for that university. I don't think that's unrealistic at all. I think that's a given. That's what you are expected to do. Is competing in a conference harder? Oh, heck yes. Mm-hmm. Now it remains to be seen how difficult the American is going to be compared to the new American.
Yeah.
And, UTSA is going to be tough. UAB has had some moments where they've been really good, but you're losing some really good football teams
sure.
that will make competing and winning in that conference much easier in the next couple of years.
Sure. Of course, our old friend Trent Dilfer coming into that conference now as the head coach at UAB. Our buddy Bill Wagner from the Annapolis Capital wrote today that what Ken Niumatalolo did worthy of the College Football Hall of Fame. And I don't, pretend to follow the College Football Hall of Fame to know exactly what the standards are the way that I do, say, the Pro Football Hall of Fame, Randy. But on paper, I don't know that I can argue with that. One of the winningest programs in college football in a decade at a service academy. I don't know that there isn't a strong argument for Ken Niumatalolo to be a College Football Hall of Fame member.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I played for a football coach, Pepper Rogers, that was the head coach at UCLA and Kansas and Georgia Tech and whatnot, and he didn't qualify because he never got to 100 wins. Ken obviously had over 100 wins. And did it at a place like the Naval Academy with all the challenges involved in that. So yeah, I would definitely say he would meet the criteria. Any Hall of Fame is at times kind of a popularity contest, and as much as you can mitigate that with stats and numbers and metrics or whatever other happy baloney you want to come up with, I think from that popularity contest, there's no doubt that Ken Niumatalolo will be appreciated as a College Football Hall of Fame coach by what he did.
Yeah.
I think once he got over 100, being able to compete like that, and like I just said a little while ago, it's what's expected, but what's expected and what you get is usually two wildly different things. And he delivered, he over-delivered as far as expectations come. So yeah, I would agree with that.
Hey, Randy, while I have you, if I could, we're in an interesting spot here in Baltimore where the Ravens on Sunday, they got back to running the ball as they played the Steelers, and they ran for over 200 yards, and they pounded it. And even at the end of the game, when the Steelers, knew the run was coming, the Ravens were able to run the ball, pick up a first down, and grind the game out. And there's been this eternal question since the Ravens started doing this a few years ago with Greg Roman of, can you do this and win a Super Bowl? And I certainly understand why they're not the favorites, and everybody likes the Eagles and the Bills, although the Eagles run the ball a ton too. The Bills and the Chiefs a little bit more. But, knowing a thing or two about the joy of being an offensive lineman and running the ball, can you do this now in the NFL? Can you be a team that runs the ball, imposes your will running the ball, and beat the best teams in the NFL doing it in order to try to win a Super Bowl?
Well, I believe we're going to find out this year. There's several teams that are kind of in the tournament, are going to be in the tournament, that fit that sort of profile. I think my old team, the Niners, for the last several years, have been a team that, throws the ball in the 20 to 25 range times a game, but they're going to pound the ball at you hard and feature the running game. So I think you can, but a lot of that's predicated on, A, doing it effectively, and being able to impose your will, which in the NFL is a lot harder than college.
Of course.
Because the adults don't take it quite as well.
Right.
But also, you got to have the defense that goes with that. You got to have the defense that keeps giving you back the ball. And if you can hold on to the ball, you can eat the clock, and you can send those kind of messages, you make people panic, and you make people uncomfortable. And when they get uncomfortable, they take chances maybe they shouldn't. And that's when offenses get in trouble. Especially you have a good defense and you run the ball well, you can put a lot of stress on another offense and another coaching staff that tends to lead to cracks.
And since the moment Roquan Smith arrived in Baltimore, they've had, for the most part, that type of defense. It'll be interesting to see if it can play out. At Randy Cross FB on Twitter is how you follow him. Randy, is there anything we can plug for you, sir?
Oh, that's good. I just got done. We just got done with the college football season from my end of it. Inside college football is done. So until the draft specials and everything else, the college football world's going to concentrate on our 14 playoff and these bowls coming up.
By the way, does it matter?
Fantastic finish.
Does any of this matter, or is Georgia just winning the national championship again because they've just sort of separated themselves that significantly?
Well, you got to be impressed. Anytime a team gets 15 guys drafted and 5 in the first round, and their defense gets better, That makes zero sense.
Yeah.
But they're the prohibitive favorite. That first game is going to determine who the national champion is, because I don't believe Ohio State is this deeply flawed, non-physical team that Michigan made them look like. I think they're still extremely talented and extremely dangerous. So I think whoever comes out of that semifinal is going to be your champion.
Interesting. Very interesting. All right, Randy Cross, truly appreciate you, my friend. Merry Christmas to you, your family. Thank you so much for taking a couple of minutes for us this morning.
No time. No problem at all. Anytime.
Randy Cross from CBS with us here on GCR, three-time Super Bowl champ. PressBoxOnline.com/offers is where you find all of the best offers for signing up for whatever you're looking to do sports betting-wise here in the state of Maryland. For example, $200 in free bets from DraftKings after placing your first $5 bet, or $1,000 in risk-free bets from BetMGM. PressBoxOnline.com/offers. Go right now and get signed up. And it is official. We have a guest now for the Tyus Bowser Show tonight. Devin Duvernay will be joining Tyus Bowser this evening at the Hamilton Sports Bar and Grill. Hope that you will come join us 7 o'clock for that over on Harford Road. Tyus Bowser Show is a partnership of PressBox and Grade 8's Memorabilia. It's brought to you by the all-new Ginsu Kamado Grill and Maryland Vascular Specialists. Hope to see you tonight for the Tyus Bowser Show. Find out more, PressBoxOnline.com/Bowser. Again, Tyus will be joined tonight by Devin Duvernay. All right, we got a few minutes here. Still to come this morning, Joe Serpico is going to join us. We'll preview Waiver-Wire Wednesday. We'll get our weekly visit with Patrick Stevens in. A lot of frustration from Orioles fans, particularly related to Chris Bassett yesterday, which is interesting to me. I was not as hot and heavy about Chris Bassett, but I get it in the hey, this is what's out there, this is what's left, and if we don't think it's going to be Carlos Rodon, it's very kind of interesting that Carlos Rodon now is basically the only pitcher. Like, basically the only one. The guy that was at the top of the list is basically the only one that's still sitting out there at this point. There was another name that somebody floated out to me that I've forgotten about that was also still a free agent. I'll try to remember who it is in a second.
David Price, right?
No, David Price, in fact, said he was not planning to pitch this year. Michael Wacha is still available, but that wasn't even the one that somebody brought up to me. There was a name that somebody brought up to me yesterday that I'm telling you I hadn't even thought about.
Oh, Eovaldi, maybe?
Yes, that's exactly who it was. Nathan Eovaldi. I was like, man, I hadn't even thought about Nathan Eovaldi. So Chris Bassett and Sean Manaea both go off the board yesterday. The more frustrating thing I think about Bassett, because Manaea went to the Giants, which I think some people are hoping means that takes them out of the Carlos Rodon sweepstakes, but they're saying it does not. The frustrating thing about Bassett is that it's Toronto, that it's not just that it's not Baltimore, that it's Toronto. So it's a double whammy, right? Like, not only do you not get him, but on top of that, one of your competitors to try to get into the playoffs gets better in the process. And that understandably is frustrating to Orioles fans. I'm not here to try to say anything that makes you feel better. There was an awkwardness to everything about this offseason. There was an awkwardness to this season going a way that, frankly, it wasn't supposed to go, and probably the way that internally the Orioles had prepared for everything was never really based around the idea that they were going to be so good in 2022 that there was going to be a demand for a serious, drive up as far as salary was concerned in 2023. Now, they had all year to prepare for that. What is really going on? Is it really Mike Elias's decision to say we're not going to spend the money right now? Is it coming from above him? Is it coming from the fact that, the Angelos family is suing each other and they can't spend money right now? All of these things are being put out there into the ether, and I can't tell you singularly that any of them is the individual reason why the Orioles haven't spent real money yet this offseason. I understand your frustrations. I get your frustrations. This organization, the leadership of this organization, has a burden to prove that they can go to the next step. I keep saying this about, like, for example, Mike Elias, who I have no reason not to like at all. But for me to suddenly believe that Mike Elias can do something, I have no idea if Mike Elias is capable of creating a World Series champion. Yes, he was part of the staff in Houston, but I don't know if he alone, singularly, is capable of doing this. I don't know if the organization is going to give him the resources necessary in order to do it. I am sympathetic to the idea that there are still decisions that need to be made amongst internal candidates for who's a part of this and who isn't. And I reflected that in the column, that there was an awkwardness about the way that we talked about next year. Because there is still, every time we do this, we keep coming away with like well, is Anthony Santander part of this? Is Cedric Mullins part of this? You keep doing this without having the answers. And that it is equally as likely that there are more pieces that aren't here that are going to be part of whatever the Orioles' best chance is in this window as there are pieces that already are here. It's just as likely that the group, Gunnar Henderson and Adley Rutschman, end up being the two. And that the next group is more of the Colton Cowsers and Heston Kjerstads and Jackson Hollidays of the world than it is Cedric Mullins, Anthony Santander, Austin Hayes, Jorge Mateos of the world. It's frustrating. I'm with you. I am. I'm not surprised terribly, but it's frustrating. There are still things that can be done. They could still add a pitcher, a Michael Wacha. There are still also bats that are available. They could still make trades. And as I said a million times, the best thing they could do this offseason is lock up Adley Rutschman long term. It's the most significant thing that they could do for this fan base to discuss commitment, is to tie themselves to their own guy that we all believe in. There are still plenty of things the Orioles can do between now and when they report to spring training to make us feel better about the state of the organization than we feel in the moment. Am I confident that they're going to do those things? Of course not. I mean, how could I possibly be? Where would that come from? It would be misplaced for me to say that I'm confident that the Orioles are going to make any of those moves. I know how beat down this fan base is. I know how infuriating it's been to be an Orioles fan. That every time there's a reason for a modicum of joy, it always seems to be followed up by another slap in the face. And we're desperate just to have some sort of consistent good news. This season largely provided that. Largely. Adley Rutschman showed up. He was exactly as advertised. Winning came along with him. The pitching was much better. Yes, they weren't quite good enough to be good enough, but there was every reason to think that something was occurring. This season made it feel good to be an Orioles fan. They have not built off of that. They have not used that to project forward. Not yet so far. To say I'm willing to be patient, I don't know what other choice I have. What would I do if, let's just say I wasn't patient. I'm not patient. I mean, they're not going to fire anyone. You kind of don't have a choice but to be patient. I mean, you could stop being a fan. I mean, you could stop being invested. It seems like an odd time to choose to do that, given, again, it feels like you're on the ground floor of something that's special. It's not likely that they're going to get rid of Adley Rutschman and Gunnar Henderson and go the other way. You kind of have no choice but to be patient. And that's not fun. it stinks. It sucks the life out of you because you're watching. As I think Nathan Ruiz tweeted out yesterday all the dollar figures that have been spent by the other teams in the AL East this offseason, and here you are just sort of sitting there like, yeah, okay. What about us? What about over here? Yeah, the Yankees. Guaranteed money given to free agents by AL East teams so far this season. Yankees, $411 million. Of course, Aaron Judge. Red Sox, $137.5 million. Blue Jays, $63 million. The Rays, $40 million. Orioles, $10 million. It smacks you upside the face. I mean, it really does. It's brutal. So what do? I mean, I'm not going to tell you guys that you're wrong to tweet and to show your frustration. I don't ever understand why it gets personal. Like, I'll never understand that. Like, I'll never understand making it personal about someone because you have no idea really who this is. Like, if you knew that Mike Elias was saying, had the ability to spend money and was saying, but we're just not going to because I don't want to do that. Okay, then I can understand why you'd be frustrated with Mike Elias. If your frustration is with John Angelos and if you're trying to do the bit, well, it's still the same old Angelos family. I have said a million times, that's their burden. Whether it's fair or not. I don't know that it's fair to John Angelos to hold him to the failings of his father. But it is the burden he carries. I compare it to like Maryland's long drought for winning a national championship in lacrosse. It wasn't John Tillman's. He wasn't around for 4 decades. But he still had to inherit it. He still had to shoulder it every day as the coach of the program until they won the 2017 title and obviously won another one this year. You carry that burden whether it's fair or not. John Angelos is not responsible for the failings of his father as the owner of a baseball team, but he does carry his father's name and his father's legacy. And until he shows a different direction, a different path, Orioles fans are going to hold him to that legacy. I'm not telling you that you can't. I'm not telling you that it's wrong. I'm not telling you any of those things. I get it. I understand. I understand if you wake up and you look around and you say, same old Angelos family. Nothing will ever change. This is why I can't fully get on board. I know our buddy John in Little Rock has remained that way for years. When everybody else was getting excited, he was like, dude, it's still the same old Orioles. I get it. I understand. It doesn't make me mad at all. I get they have to prove this. Winning some baseball games alone last year does not suddenly energize the totality of the region. The people that are ardent, dyed-in-the-wool baseball fans, many of whom were going out anyway when the team stunk, yes, they were energized by it, and more of the casual fans were energized by it, certainly by Adley Rutschman. But the average, Steve on the street, you got to do more than that. The Orioles could have used this offseason, if they so chose, to try to tap into that, to try to make it all lift off, if you will. They haven't. Is it a problem to me that you guys want to hold Mike Elias to that word? No, I don't know. I really do think that he ended up screwing up, by saying what he said. And we talked about this with Stan on Friday. I think it was a flip comment after he had put his foot in his mouth about the trade deadline, and it created it created a problem that he wasn't prepared to deal with. I just don't think that he could have fathomed how much life that word was going to take within this fan base, and that it was going to create a standard by which he was going to be judged. I don't feel sorry for Mike Elias. Mike Elias is fine. His life is fine. But I don't think he was trying to proclaim, we're going to go out and sign a bunch of free agents this offseason in that moment. I think he was trying to proclaim that we've entered into the phase where we're going to try to win. And I do think the Orioles, their goals are going to be to win. Will they be able to do it with the roster at the moment? I'm skeptical. Not that they can't win games, but can they compete in the AL East? No, I don't think so. Not as constructed. I think they needed help to do that. They also need other players to take a step up. I feel all of your emotions. I feel all of those frustrations. I still hope there's something. Whatever it is, something. It would be painful for there to be nothing more of significance that occurs between now and the start of spring training. It would be very difficult to stomach that for this fan base. It would be tough. They'd still show up for the most part if the Orioles win, but it would be a real gut punch for there to be no significant news of any sort. Hour number 1 of today's show is in the books. It was also brought to you by your Baltimore area Chick-fil-A restaurants. If you are looking for a simple holiday meal, try Chick-fil-A catering. From Chick-fil-A nuggets to mac and cheese, enjoy a variety of tray options sized perfectly for your get-together. Order through the Chick-fil-A app and bring smiles to your family gathering. Availability and order requirements vary. See restaurant for details. When we come back in, we are going to preview Waiver-Wire Wednesday. Are you picking up Brock Purdy for the playoffs? It's an unreal sentence that we're talking about. We'll talk about it with Joe Serpico from PressBox next. It's Glenn Clark Radio.
Gambling can be a fun and entertaining experience, but there are risks involved. If you're planning on betting on the game at the casino or on your phone or computer, know your limit, stay within it. Set a budget and a time to stop. Remember, gambling isn't a financial solution, and it doesn't mix well with alcohol or drugs. Know the risks and have a plan before you begin gambling. For free and confidential services, call 1-800-GAMBLER 24/7 or go to helpmygamblingproblem.org.
Experience the best in Kamado Grilling, a complete outdoor cooking appliance. The Ginsu Kamado Grill allows anyone to sear, grill, bake, and smoke all types of food. Designed for efficiency and function, the Ginsu Kamado Grill upholds the enduring legacy of the iconic Ginsu brand. The Ginsu Kamado Grill is perfect to cook all year round, is great for parties, and ideal for tailgating with your friends. Reserve your Ginsu Kamado Grill today at ginsugrills.com and get $100 off on your pre-order when you use the promo code TAILGATE. That's ginsugrills.com. Reserve yours today.
Whether your focus is luxury and comfort, convenience and technologically advanced connectivity, or sporty performance and aggressive styling, we've got the perfect Highlander for you. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Highlanders from your local Toyota dealer today.
Join the Maryland Jockey Club at Laurel Park for Christmastide Stakes Day on Monday, December 26th. An exciting day of live horse racing awaits you with a whopping 6 stakes races worth $600,000 in prize money. Plus, enjoy a specially curated stakes buffet, a delicious hot chocolate bar, and hot cider cocktails. It may be cold, but Laurel Park has plenty of horse racing excitement, food, and beverages to keep you warm. Don't miss Christmastide Stakes Day at Laurel Park. Visit laurelpark.com for more info.
Another Orioles season is in the books, and the Bat-Around was there every step of the way as the Birds posted their first winning season in 6 years. And after promoting 2 #1 overall prospects in Adley Rutschman and Gunnar Henderson, Mike Elias has said it's liftoff from here. Hi, I'm Paul Valley, and along with my co-host Zach Goodman, we'll be here every Saturday from 10 a.m. to noon all off season, discussing every signing, trade, and waiver claim as we navigate the cold winter months that lead to spring training. You can watch us at youtube.com/PressBoxOnline and facebook.com/PressBoxSports, or listen live at PressBoxOnline.com/radio. And if you miss a show, you can find us anywhere you get your podcasts. So tune into the Bat-Around with Paul Valley and Zach Goodman every Saturday from 10 a.m. to noon right here at PressBox Sports.
Need a last-minute gift for a kid in your life? How about a membership to the Retriever Kids Club? It includes free youth admission to all regular season UMBC home games, plus a t-shirt and a drawstring backpack. Membership is only $35. It's a great deal, makes a tremendous holiday gift. Visit umbcretrievers.com/kids club for more info. Membership is for kids 12 and under. The Retriever Kids Club. Find out more, umbcretrievers.com/kids club.
If you can't listen or watch live, you can subscribe to the show via Spotify, Amazon, or Apple Podcasts. Leave a 5-star review while you're there. Or, if lying isn't your thing, we'll take a 3.5-star review too.
All right, back in here on GCR. Glory Days Grill, that's where we're going to be come Monday night. Come Monday, we'll be at Glory Days Grill. Come Monday, I'll be shoving the twisted ribs and wings combo in my face. Come hang out with Drew and I on Monday night from 6 to 8 p.m. at Glory Days Grill here in Towson. We need you to just bring out toiletries. Bring out, soaps and shampoos and toothbrushes, toothpaste and razors, all those things. We need those things for the folks at Helping Up Mission. So if you don't mind stopping by, picking some of those up, and coming out to hang with us on Monday night, we greatly appreciate it. We will be at Glory Days Grill right here in Towson. Looking forward to seeing you at 6 to 8 p.m. You can enjoy anything from the Comfort Classics menu. It's just going to be a great night to hang out. That's it. Just a good night to hang out, lift up the folks at Helping Up Mission. That's all we're asking you to do for the holidays, is come by and hang with us on Monday from 6 to 8 p.m. If for some reason you just say, hey, Glenn, it's just not practical for me to get out and shop for toiletries, stop by anyway, and if you can make a little cash donation, that would be great. I mean, that would be wonderful if you could do that, and we will put that towards what we collect for the folks at Helping Up Mission. Do still need, I think, like 5 more people to sign up for our Bull Pick'em contest. Very simple. 5 more people. $20 50-50 Bull Pick'em contest. Half of the pot will go to the winner. The other half of the pot goes to Helping Up Mission. And we need about 5 more folks to sign up. So all you got to do, just Venmo me at Glenn-Clark or at GlennClark180 on PayPal. $ Glenn Clark Radio on Cash App. Any of those ways work. If you need to do something else, hit me up, GlennClarkRadio@gmail.com or at Glenn Clark Radio on Twitter. We'll work our way through it. But we need like 5 more people to sign up for our Bull Pick'em contest. The games start on Friday. No excuses, particularly if you were one of our regulars. I've decided not to do too much name calling, but like I know who you are, and it's going to sadden me if you didn't get involved with us. Bowl Pick'em contest. Just picking outright winners of the bowl games. No one has an advantage because, no one has any idea who's playing in these games. So get signed up right now. Again, at Glenn Clark Radio, at Glenn-Clark on Venmo, GlennClark180 on PayPal, and Cash App, $ Glenn Clark Radio. $20 gets you in 50-50 charity Bull Pick'em contest to benefit the Helping Up Mission. It is Tuesday. Every Tuesday we preview Waiver-Wire Wednesday. The playoffs get underway this week. Who is helping us? And some of us need all the help that we can get. Joining us now, PressBox Fantasy Football analyst Joe Serpico with us on GCR. Joe, what's going on, man? How are you?
It's Tuesday of, like you said, it's a playoff week for some. For others, maybe you start next week. And in my 2 leagues, I went 1-1. So one I'm in, the other one I'm looking to play playoff spoiler for somebody else in my league.
Yeah, that's I think I'm definitely out in one. I didn't even check in the third. I should do that right now. I know I'm in the one league that I care about the most. So that's all that I really care about at the moment. Let's talk about Waiver-Wire Wednesday. Let's talk about Brock Purdy. Because we have to talk about Brock Purdy. Is Brock Purdy a man at this point that could potentially carry you if you've been dealing with, like, for example, in one of my leagues, I'm looking at Aaron Rodgers and Deshaun Watson and saying, I don't feel great about any of this. Should I be thinking about Brock Purdy this week?
Ooh, I didn't even consider that, to be brutally honest. But now looking at the numbers, I can see why you are considering it, and especially since it was another rough week for quarterback injuries. Russell Wilson went down with the concussion. We know about Tyler Huntley. I'm blanking on another. Oh, Kenny Pickett also went out, and then Kyler Murray just last night. So, yeah, it's all of a sudden the quarterbacks are a dime a dozen right now. It's kind of hard to trust on a rookie guy that was drafted in the 7th round, but at the same time, I think
played well.
Anybody who follows the NFL whatsoever just knows that Kyle Shanahan just seems a offensive guru, so he knows how to put Brock Purdy in those in situations to win. And then they do have a pretty enticing matchup with the Seahawks upcoming. My only concern there is that it's all on Thursday. So there is a really kind of a quick turnaround. I don't know how much game planning they're really going to get to do just because of that. So Purdy, yeah. I mean, if you are in, let's say, a 2-team league, you really need somebody, or you're really, really hurting, maybe you can consider Brock Purdy. But I think for my taste, he's probably going to be sitting somewhere in between the, let's say, the 15 to 20 range of your quarterback.
So you're still playing in Aaron Rodgers over a Brock Purdy this week?
Yeah, my reason being, so Aaron Rodgers typically has been electric on Monday Night Football. The Rams defense right now has been a shell of itself, to say the least. The injuries to Aaron Donald, and then Jalen Ramsey just looks like he's just nowhere near the same player he used to be. So the Rams are beatable now as opposed to in years past where you try to avoid them. But the Packers on Monday night, I'm still trusting them, or I should say, I guess, still trusting Aaron Rodgers. I say at this time of the year, you kind of want to trust on the guys who got you this far. Now, that doesn't mean to not look at certain matchups, but if you've been riding somebody for, let's say, 13 of the 14 weeks we've gone so far, there's no reason why to just all of a sudden start overthinking things. So Aaron Rodgers over Purdy for now. I still need to see another game. I'm one of those that doesn't like to overreact after one game and
I don't know, man.
Start plugging somebody in that spot.
But he played well against Miami too. It's very difficult for me because I don't trust Aaron Rodgers. I don't know what I'm going to do there. Another name that I didn't see on your list that is interesting to folks around here because he's, of course, a former Terp, Chigakonkwo in Tennessee is starting to look to me like he can become an option when you're looking at the wasteland that has been the tight end position.
Yeah, so I had him actually today in today's piece as somebody as a sleeper that you want to use if you're doing, let's say, a daily fantasy lineup. He's definitely getting featured more in the lineup. Again, though, he's just somebody that I'm a little bit hesitant to rely on because the Titans don't really pass the ball a ton. There's still Austin Hooper there. If it was his job solely, absolutely, I would be all in on Okonkwo. But because Hooper's still there and Hooper is still getting the majority of the snaps at tight end, and he's getting just as many, if not more, looks than Okonkwo currently. That's just more of a situation where the Titans right now, their receiving core is a little banged up, so they're kind of relying on pretty much anybody else that they've got available to them right now. I do think Okonkwo might be a guy, let's say next year, to consider as maybe a late sleeper. But for the time being, I mean, we've talked about tight ends all year long. It's hard to trust anybody. So if you wanted to give Okonkwo a shot, I don't blame you, especially if you're really struggling to find somebody there. But if you have better options, I would probably consider those. Some guys, Cole Kmet, even Hunter Henry, Tyler Conklin, they're still guys I still trust a little bit more over Okonkwo right now.
All right, so who are guys that are actually worthy of waiver claims at this point? Not just guys, that you'd pick up on Thursday and guys that should be on rosters, but who, if anyone, then, is actually worthy of using on a waiver claim at this point as you get ready for the playoffs?
Well, I talked about the quarterback situation earlier. Somebody who's kind of gone under the radar as of late has been Trevor Lawrence. I don't know if he's available in some leagues.
Boy, if he's available, I'm jealous of the league that you are in. God, what I wouldn't give.
Well, he's available. Let's put it this way: he's available in 2 of the 3 leagues that I'm in, which surprised me as well.
How?
Maybe you come join us next year.
No doubt.
I could use some competition. But no, Lawrence is just, like I said, gone a little bit under the radar. He hasn't thrown an interception since week 8. He's got 70% of his passes completed in, I think it's 4 of his last 5, and he's coming off that best game of the year. I know the Cowboys and Jets are looming, but we've kind of seen lately that the Jaguars, they've got weapons. They're not a team that just kind of lays down anymore like we've seen in years past. Doug Peterson seems to have them trending up. I mean, between Lawrence, Etienne, Zay Jones, Evan Ingram, they're starting to look like a formidable offense, and Lawrence is obviously leading the way there. So if Lawrence is available, that's a guy I would consider. We talked about Zonovan Knight the past couple weeks. He's definitely another name. If he's somehow still out there, scoop him up. It looks like it's his job moving forward. I know we've also talked about the Kansas City backfield quite a bit. I'm finally buying into Isaiah Pacheco's run. it's not just because he's getting double-digit carries every week, but he's also getting featured in the passing game. He's got 6 catches in the past 3 weeks. I know that doesn't sound like a whole lot, but 6 in the past 3 weeks compared to 3 in all weeks prior, that's a little bit of something you should be keeping an eye on. And I mentioned the other 2 Jaguars, Zay Jones and Evan Ingram. They're both become lately target monsters, especially Zay Jones. We saw what he did against the Ravens. 12 targets this week, 15 targets from Evan Ingram. I mean, we've talked about how bad it is, the tight end position. I don't care what your situation looks like at tight end. It's hard to argue 15 targets for any player. I believe he was also the leading scorer, at least through the 1 o'clock window. I don't know if that held up with the 4 o'clocks in the later games. So, yeah, I like a bunch of Jags this week, even though they've got some tough matchups looming. But other than that, I mean, we can kind of talk about your backup running backs. I know I've talked about that a lot in the past. But those guys maybe are not so much somebody you want to use a waiver claim on. Maybe those are guys you want to pick up on Thursday.
Yeah, that's the sense that I get there. I will point out, Joe Serpico, PressBoxOnline.com, fantasy football analyst, is with us here on GCR. I will point out that I, a few years ago, stopped using waiver claims on a defense and just was willing to take whatever defense was sitting there because it always felt like there was at least a good matchup to be had. But you know, this is the playoffs we're talking about, and I do kind of throw that out the window. Is there a particular defense that you recommend? I'll give you an example in this one league I'm staring at the Broncos against Colt McCoy. That seems pretty good. The Vikings against the Colts are out there. The Panthers are against the Steelers. Is again twofold. Would you use a waiver claim to grab one of those, or would you say, hey, there's a bunch of good options there, hold out and just pick one of the whatever's left when you get to Thursday?
I would hold out just because depending on your league size, I mean, hopefully you're not in a league where the guys that are out of the playoffs are picking up
it's quite the penalty for finishing last in this particular league. So I do think that even the teams that are in the trash bracket might still be involved with the waiver wire process because it is painful what you're asked to do should you lose this league.
Maybe I'll be seeing them at Waffle House.
It's more like
or 1.25.
Yeah, it's more like you're responsible for beers for the entire year. And you got to pay the winners way into the league next year. It's a lot. It's a sizable penalty for losing the league.
Well, good. I like leagues like that keep everybody involved until year's end. In my particular leagues, we pay out the highest scorer every week. So even if you're done technically out of the playoffs,
I like that too.
Make some of the money back.
that.
Make some of your money back from your initial buy-in. Again, but I don't know if I'm willing to. I know, like I said before, you want to play some matchups this time of year, you know what? Go for it, because considering there's probably, if you have any fab money left, I mean, who's really left for us at this time of year to use that? If there's a matchup you really like, you mentioned the Vikings. That's one that I had mentioned in weeks prior. Another one that I mentioned this week in my article was the Raiders. Yeah, sure. Letting Baker Mayfield make that comeback after being there for, I think the number was like 40 hours and whatnot, that was kind of embarrassing. But all in all, the Raiders defense did play pretty well. They still held them to under 17 points. And this week they got the Patriots. Mac Jones is somebody that doesn't scare me whatsoever as a quarterback. And then the following week they got the Steelers, whether it's Pickett or Mitch Trubisky. That's a favorable matchup there. So I like to those guys.
You like those?
You can't pay attention to their offenses that are especially the Raiders case, really scare you.
Yeah.
But, defensively, the Raiders are actually not too bad, especially when they got 2 elite pass rushers.
So you like those
there.
better than the Broncos against Colt McCoy?
Well, yeah. Well, that one a little bit surprising when you said that, because I would assume the Broncos, fantasy-wise, I believe they're a top 10 defense. And then all in all, they're considered a top 10 defense. So that surprises me a little bit they're available. So if they're available, yes, absolutely.
Okay.
I was more considering guys or defensive units that are, maybe more forgotten about. But, yeah, if the Broncos are available, absolutely go after them. That kind of shocks me that they're an option for you.
All right, very good. I think maybe somebody probably dropped them because they were playing the Chiefs last week. Because if I had to guess, that was probably the scenario there. At Joe Serp on Twitter is how you follow him. You can see his stuff every day at PressBoxOnline.com. I pray I'm still alive in some capacity when we speak again next Tuesday, Joe. Appreciate you, man. Thank you for taking a couple of minutes for us.
That makes two of us. I'll talk to you then.
Sounds good, buddy. Joe Serpico with us here on GCR. Today's show also brought to you by your local Toyota dealer and buyatoyota.com. The Toyota Tacoma comes in a range of models and trim lines, so you can choose the perfect Tacoma to reflect your unique personality and driving habits. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Tacomas from your local Toyota dealer today. And, of course, don't forget, PressBoxOnline.com/offers. Still time, but these offers are not going to last for forever. These are all unique to still us being in the infancy of mobile sports betting here in the state of Maryland. So the longer you wait, the less likely you are to be able to take advantage of great sign-up offers. Like, for example, if you go right now to PressBoxOnline.com/offers, you could, hypothetically, get $100 in free bets from Barstool after you place your first $10 bet, or up to $1,500 in risk-free bets from Caesars. That's all available. PressBoxOnline.com/offers. All right, when we come back in, Patrick Stevens joins us. Of course, our college sports guru, Washington Post. We will chat about the rough week for Maryland, a couple of losses. They got UCLA next. Also, Patrick covered a lot of Navy football over the years, so we'll talk to him about Ken Niumatalolo as well. All that on the way. Glenn Clark Radio. Join the Maryland Jockey Club at Laurel Park for Christmastide Stakes Day on Monday, December 26th. An exciting day of live horse racing awaits you with a whopping 6 stakes races worth $600,000 in prize money. Plus, enjoy a specially curated stakes buffet, a delicious hot chocolate bar, and hot cider cocktails. It may be cold, but Laurel Park has plenty of horse racing excitement, food, and beverages to keep you warm. Don't miss Christmastide Stakes Day at Laurel Park. Visit laurelpark.com for more info.
Come experience Maryland's #1 sportsbook this NFL season at the FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel, the ultimate place for any sports enthusiast. Take advantage of our 24/7 kiosks, massive video screens, and watch all the action from the best seat in the house. With more money paid out than anyone around, make every moment more at the new FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel in Hanover, Maryland. Please play responsibly. Gambling problem? Please call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit mdgamblinghelp.org.
The weather outside is really unpleasant, so it's time to warm up with some comfort classics this winter at your neighborhood Glory Days Grill. Try the Twisted Ribs and Wings combo. It's 2 full pounds of meat, the mac and cheese bites, Mr. Richards meatloaf, the citrus salmon, the winter spinach salad, and for dessert, here's internet radio personality Griffin Bass to tell you about the bourbon butter cake.
Oh my God, it's so good.
Pair it with a blood orange bourbon cider or a devil's backbone cranberry smash. Place your order now at glorydaysgrill.com. Glory Days Grill. Great food, good sports.
That first sip. That first bite. Start your day off right with a delicious breakfast at Royal Farms. Choose from a fantastic selection of fresh Royal Farms breakfast sandwiches and top it off with a rich hot cup of the freshest coffee in the world. At Royal Farms, breakfast is available day and night. It's the freshest breakfast in the world. Real fresh, real fast. Royal Farms.
Stan the Fan here, welcoming back one of my favorite sponsors, the Costas Inn. And everybody around Baltimore knows the Costas Inn is a great place to go and grab crabs, steaks, salads, soups, whatever's on your mind to eat in person. But did you know that the Costas Inn has upped their game? They are now one of the premier takeout places in Baltimore. Give them a call now to order your food, 410-477-1975. That's the Costas Inn over at 4100 North Point Boulevard.
Looking for a simple holiday meal? Try Chick-fil-A Catering. From Chick-fil-A nuggets to mac and cheese, enjoy a variety of tray options sized perfectly for your get-together. Order through the Chick-fil-A app and bring smiles to your family gathering. Availability and order requirements vary. See restaurant for details.
Tune in to Simply the Bets every Tuesday and Weekend at Bookies every other Thursday at 11:40 a.m. And if you really have nothing better to do, keep listening to this show, too.
If you missed it yesterday, of course, we were talking to Orioles earlier this morning. Stan the Fan Charles, Ross Grimsley. We're joined by Rich Dubroff of BaltimoreBaseball.com. You can find that conversation right now, Facebook.com/PressBoxSports, YouTube.com/PressBoxOnline, or PressBoxOnline.com/video. Those are all of the locations to find that particular conversation. This is a Tuesday edition of Glenn Clark Radio. Of course, today we will be doing Simply the Bets, trying to get you ready for the week of sports betting. Aaron Oster will check in with us, as will our guy Leon Twyman. That's all coming up on Simply the Bets this morning, brought to you by the FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel. The UMBC women's basketball team has a big game this Sunday against American, and then start thinking about your plans for New Year's Day, because there's a huge showdown game occurring at the Peak. The UMBC men hosting Vermont in a rematch of last year's America East Championship game. You can get your tickets for both of those games right now by going to umbcretrievers.com and experience game day at Chesapeake Employers Insurance Arena. Let's talk a little more college basketball, some college sports in general. Joining us now, as he does every Tuesday morning, he is our friend, Mr. Patrick Stevens from the Washington Post. You follow him on Twitter at Discourse, D1S Course. Patrick, good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm doing well, Glenn. How are you this morning?
I'm all right. Before we get into Maryland and college basketball for the week, I know you covered a lot of Navy football over the years, and you spent a lot of time around Ken Niumatalolo. Just what was your reaction to the news on Saturday, some of the fallout that we've found out about over the course of the last 48 hours or so?
I mean, I think the first word that came to mind was disappointing. Disappointing that a guy that had done so much for that program and that athletic department was basically cut loose, I think, a year early. And at least a year early. And I get that things are about wins and losses and whatnot, but at the academy in particular, at the service academies in particular, there is a leadership component in there. And there are certain people that are just such good fits for a place. And when there are some mitigating circumstances, and I do think, regardless of what Chet Gladchuk had to say yesterday, that the pandemic set them back more than just a game, more than just that BYU game to start the 2020 season. I think that was a situation where there were challenges that there are certain challenges that are reasonable to expect somebody to overcome, and then there are certain challenges that just aren't in the playbook. And I think it goes beyond Navy in a lot of ways on the pandemic stuff. But I would tell you that Ken Niumatalolo is one of the most genuine and decent people I've come across in sports or outside of sports. And I think it was, a little ominous last year when you saw the Ivan Jasper stuff and him being fired as offensive coordinator and brought back as quarterback's coach in about a 48-hour span. And, when you think about Navy over the last 20 years, one of the remarkable things about that program has been the stability. And that kind of, chipped away at that. Even if Jasper remained, it kind of showed a few fissures in how that program was operating relative to the boss and what have you. So that was a little disconcerting. And I think for this year, let's face it, there's two things that you can sit there and look at for this particular season. If they beat Delaware and if they beat Army, they win their opener against Delaware and they beat Army at the end, they're 6-6, and we're not even having this conversation. We might not be having this conversation if they simply win a coin flip game against Army. And with just how capricious college overtime is, to think that there's a possibility, regardless of what was said, that you're making a coaching decision based on a coin flip type game like that is kind of mind boggling. So, I think that the leadership component is one of those things that stands out. And I should point this out too. And I don't want to get into every last little detail on this, but it wasn't Ken Niumatalolo's idea to go join the American Athletic Conference. And it wasn't his idea to go play Cincy in Central Florida and a number of other programs. Those two in particular are leaving the AAC. if they had remained independent and basically taken the Army approach, the current Army approach, we wouldn't be having this conversation either, because they would have gone out, they would have played Notre Dame, they would have played a couple other high-end games, they would have played their service academy rivals, they would have sprinkled in an FCS team, they would have sprinkled in, UConn and UMass and some other games, and we would be sitting here talking about a 7-5 team. So, I think that a lot of the reasons for why things are not as good as they were maybe 10 years or so ago stem from decisions that go beyond football, whether it's the conference, whether it's the pandemic, et cetera. I will point this out, and I do think it is fair criticism of Navy's program over the last 5 years that there has not been a steady, consistent quarterback successor to that line that had Keipo, that had Rick Dobbs, that had Keenan Reynolds. Malcolm Perry obviously had a great senior season. Let's face it, Malcolm Perry did a lot of that stuff beyond the confines of a traditional triple option offense. Mm-hmm. That was just give the ball to your best player and let him go do something.
Yep.
And there's nothing wrong with that, because they went 11-2. But I do think that is a fair criticism of where Navy has been over the last 5 seasons or so. But with the league about to get measurably easier, with Cincy, Central Florida, Houston leaving, and a group of teams, some are good, like UTSA is really good, and some of them are either in some flux, like UAB with their longtime coach retiring and Trent Dilfer coming in, or programs that have really struggled to get much traction at all over the years, whether that's a Rice or a Charlotte or somebody like that. That league becomes a lot more manageable starting this coming season. So, disappointing is the word there to me on that decision. You just would have thought that with all of the stuff, whether it's mitigating circumstances or what was accomplished, that there might have been a little more wiggle room to operate with there. So disappointing is the word.
Well, we wholeheartedly agree about that. Let me ask you this question. Is it fair, given what you just brought up about the future of the AAC, is it reasonable to think that whoever the next coach ends up being at Navy, that the standard can be bowl eligibility and winning the Commanders-in-Chief trophy more often than you don't? Is it just knowing what you know about the job, about everything that goes into it, are those reasonable standards to have for the next coach of Navy football?
The 6 wins part, probably. I would not say that winning a majority, not 50% plus one, maybe 50% isn't unrealistic. But part of the deal, and I say this in other sports too, I know we've talked about this in the lacrosse world, like you can control what you control. You can't control how competent your rivals are at the same time. Like you have a little bit of control in terms of, do you recruit play, if you have overlapping recruiting and whatnot, there's a little bit of control there. But, part of Navy's problem right now, and part of Ken Niumatalolo's problem over the last 7 years, was that Army got competent. Like Army basically decided that it wanted to be competitive in those Commander-in-Chief's trophy games. And they hired somebody with extensive experience running triple option offense and really modernized their program. Not necessarily modernized in the sense of they're playing a sophisticated 21st century offense and all that, but modernized everything behind the scenes. Like you can't control what Army and Air Force do behind the scenes. There's also the point, and I think that it's a fair thing for a coach to bring up about how, Air Force held back some of its guys and what have you during the pandemic, and suddenly you've got fourth year guys against 5th and 6th year guys and whatnot, and Army did a little bit too. That I think that's just something you got to deal with. You can ask for it. There's nothing wrong with saying, hey, we can we look into this too. But that's one of those things that just kind of comes with the territory of being at an academy that has its own whims that it's going to follow, which is unfortunate, obviously. That is something that I do think does make it marginally tougher to be able to win those games. And let's face it, go look at the final scores of this year's Commander-in-Chief trophy game.
Right, they're right there.
I mean,
yeah.
It's 13-7, 20-17, and what was the Air Force Army game? Was it like 17-7 or 10-7?
It was definitely an under.
There was not a lot of difference between those two teams, or those three teams. So, do you expect to win 2 coin tosses every year if everybody is operating at a reasonably efficient rate in terms of how you're running your program? Sometimes it really is a lucky bounce or two along the way.
No question. No question. All right. Patrick Stevens is with us here on GCR. Let's move over to basketball. And, I guess somebody would say it's a disappointing week for Maryland because they went 0-2, and more that they went 0-2 in 2 games that were winnable, right? Like, they could have won either of those games against Wisconsin or against Tennessee. They didn't get either one. I don't think either one of them is a bad loss in any way. Just maybe kind of learning the difficulty, maybe this is one of the growing pains, is they still have to be able to kind of close the gap in these very difficult 50-50 games if they're going to take that next step that you and I were talking about beyond just being a team that's competing to get into the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, I almost don't even read too much into the Wisconsin game. Like that felt like okay, you're going to Madison, it's a trip to the dentist. It's never going to be a lot of fun. And that game kind of unfolded almost paint by numbers. Like you kind of knew that it was going to be that kind of game. And, was Maryland the 13th best team in the country? I certainly expressed those doubts here, and I've expressed it to a lot of other people too. Good team, probably not the 13th best team in the country.
Sure.
I think the Tennessee game, certainly that first half was one of those that you figured they were going to have 4 or 5 of those over the course of the season. Games where they were just overwhelmed, they didn't get much inside, yada, 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 and then played really well in the second half to kind of make a game of it. In some ways, it reminded me of when Maryland went up to play Seton Hall a few years ago and just played that awful first half up there right after finals against the Kevin Willard coach team, and then came back to make it close, but it was a really hard on the eyes type of game. I think the thing you take away from that game is that Maryland played good defense, and they played good defense pretty much all the way through. They got helped by the fact that Tennessee couldn't make any free throws, which was more than offset by the fact that Maryland couldn't make any 3-pointers. So you have a scenario where Julian Reese can only play 23 minutes because of foul trouble, and you go 2 of 24 from 3. Let's face it, that is not going to be a winning formula for this team. There is less margin for error for these guys than I think what people would like there to be over the long haul. So there's only so many things that can go wrong for this bunch. And, they were playing a really good Tennessee team that defends pretty well. Probably doesn't defend well enough to be, keeping people to 2 of 24 from 3 on a regular basis. But a good defensive team, so give them their applause right there. So neither of those losses really hurts. Like I said last week, this 4-game stretch, can you get a split? If you get a split, it's kind of game on. You're feeling good about things. So they're kind of on a spot to go get that UCLA thing. If not, then it's going to be, a lot in Big Ten play that they're going to have to do. It certainly helps to see a team like a Miami continuing to play well. That's a victory from earlier in non-conference play that if that can be valuable, that can do a little bit of heavy lifting for them.
So let's talk about the UCLA thing. Can they get that win against UCLA tomorrow night?
A wonderful question. And the answer, can they? Sure they can. Will they? That's an equally good question. That's a team that has obviously been playing a lot better since it lost those 2 games in Vegas. It was an extremely frustrated bunch that lost to Baylor in particular in those back-to-back games out there. And since then, they have handled their business without too much of a significant threat. They beat Oregon by 9 at home a week ago this past Sunday. So you have a team coming east. So you wonder whether the time change will have any sort of impact at all. A team that plays really good offense, a team that is extremely experienced between Jaime Jaquez and Tiger Campbell and Jalen Clark and all those guys. So it is a definite test for Maryland. It is a definite experienced team coming in, and so it'll be a good opportunity to see how do these guys deal with, you're staring at 2 losses in a row right now. Does it go to 3 before you have a break of about a week or And so I think Maryland puts up a pretty competitive game. I don't know if they win. It might be, again, to go back to the last portion of our conversation, maybe this is another coin toss game, which isn't the worst thing in the world. At the end of the day, they'll have found themselves, let's say they lose a tight game, they'll have found themselves in 4 fairly tight games over that stretch, which, if you go 1-3, it's not as good as going 2-2, but having not had your doors blown off in any of them would at least kind of show that you're operating on a fairly even playing field relative to some really, really good teams.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, right? The matter in which they've played in these games, even if the results haven't been what they want, it is relevant. It's relevant that they're competing with these teams. Again, remembering that this is the first year of a new coach with a team that is still not particularly deep, that's very much incomplete, and yet they are being competitive with some of the best teams in the country. Like, again, whatever the results may be, that does matter to some extent.
And let's not kid ourselves on this either. I think the one thing that you take away, basically, since that Coppin State game, is their defense has been really good. Everybody wanted to talk about how good the offense was in the early going. The defense is something you can control more on a game-to-game basis. I mean, obviously, sometimes you run into somebody or some person or some team that's just shooting the snot out of the ball. But you have more control over that than, well, maybe I'm not having a great day shooting, or maybe I'm running into a good defensive team. And so I feel like, that is the most welcome sign of what we've seen this month from Maryland. That, they kept Illinois to 66. They kept Wisconsin to about a point per possession on the road. At the end of the day, as awful as a watch as that Tennessee game was, they kept Tennessee to 56 points.
Yep.
On a neutral court. So if you keep somebody to 56, you're going to have a chance just about any time, unless you're like Loyola the other night up at Mount St. Mary's, which we should probably talk about too.
I was going to go to the Navy first, but we can do that if you like. Obviously, Loyola gets UMBC this evening. They have to figure out a way to score some more points at some point.
I mean, I don't mean to be mean here, but that was really one of the poorest offensive performances I've ever seen. Mount St. Mary's was down its top 2 scorers, was up 24-10 at halftime on Loyola in the 177th edition of the Catholic Clash. Mount was up 49-23 with 2:20 to go. And Loyola put on a press and was able to generate some baskets and narrowed the gap to 51-34. But it was a rough go for the Greyhounds. And by the way, I mean, Mount St. Mary's with 51 points, I think they knew it was going to be tough to score points without their 2 leading scorers. And so, all credit to the Mountaineers for playing some pretty good defense and for grinding that out. But if you're Loyola and you put up 34, and it's not just that the ball isn't going in the basket. There were times where you didn't know if the ball was going off the rim. And 2 of 19 from 3, it was a really, really rough watch for that team. And to get pounded on second chance points 22-2 when you have all those misses, that there are some serious questions, I think, for just how well Loyola is going to be able to navigate some things. And obviously they haven't played this poorly in any games previously this season. But when you have a couple veteran guards who have combined for 2,000 points in their career and they manage 2 points in a game, in a theoretical rivalry game, I don't know if that game means quite as much as it once did. That you're asking yourself some questions, and now you're going up against a UMBC team that can put the ball in the basket.
Yeah.
Now UMBC is nothing to write home about defensively, particularly on the perimeter, and maybe that's exactly what Loyola needs, to run into a team that's allowing opponents to shoot better than 40% from the outside. But the team that I saw the other night, I'm not sure they could have made 30% against anybody. It was a rough go, and so that's certainly 2 teams heading in separate directions. UMBC having won 4 in a row since that loss to Georgetown, and they win this game, and they've pretty much gotten through all of their local rivals. They've beaten Morgan and Coppin as well. They obviously have Maryland at the end of the month But basically, crown them Baltimore Metro champions if
they'll battle
if they win
Baltimore,
this game.
right? No doubt. By the way, it sounds like what you're saying is maybe it was fortunate that I was not available to do the broadcast tonight at Loyola, because that's rough. I think the big story locally was what turned out to be a really good game on Sunday between Navy and Towson, and a Navy team that you had pointed out, had tripped up a couple of times. That's a really good win for them.
It is, and there's a few things here that are worth pointing out on both sides. We'll start with Navy, and Navy. Christian Jones is a guy that had barely played his first 3 years, and he has played some really good basketball as a senior. Moved into the starting lineup a little bit earlier in the season. He had a career high 20, had a huge 3 late in regulation, another one to put him ahead in overtime, and then you get a guy like Nate Allison who scores 14. Had a late bucket in the first half to really kind of mute Towson a little bit after they dominated much of the last 5 minutes, and then played really well on a day where Navy just didn't have a great outing from Daniel Deaver. Navy gave up a 20-5 run late in the first half, comes back early in the second, tightens it up, falls behind by 9 with 8 minutes to go, comes back, forces overtime. In fact, had the lead. It took a little bit of late work by Towson to get it to overtime. So a good win for Navy, having come off some losses to Lipscomb and VMI and West Virginia as well. And so that's a good spot for them, being able to get that going into finals. They'll play Washington College and VCU coming out of finals. That I think a lesson was learned last year, playing Towson right after finals down there. It's not a good spot on the calendar for them. So they'll have a few days after finals wrap up before they head down to VCU. But Navy having some options, finding some things, and just kind of going about their business. And I think too, they kind of junked it up against the Towson team that is down its top 2 point guards in both Jason Gibson, who remains out, and that really, the longer that goes, the more you wonder how long it's going to be before he gets back. I think Towson expects to see Radir Hicks back in time for this Saturday. When they go out to Chicago to play Northern Iowa, and that's going to help them immensely. I mean, you can sit there and talk all you want, and Pat Scarry brushed it aside as an excuse. When you don't have your top 2 point guards and you're basically playing without a point guard, that's not an excuse. That's a reason.
Yep.
That's a reason why you're not playing as well as you could. And the fact is that Towson down its 2 point guards, almost went to Clemson and won, and then was in an overtime game against a really solid Navy team. So that tells you a little something about how good Towson is. Also worth noting is that aside from a stretch early in the second half, first 2 or 3 minutes, it didn't really have a great day from Charles Thompson. Didn't really get it inside to him a whole time. He had foul trouble in the first half, and then Navy was able to keep it away from him. So if you have a scenario against Towson where you essentially neutralize Charles Thompson and Jason Gibson isn't playing, that kind of narrows their path to victory a little bit. So they got an okay day out of Nicholas Timberlake, wasn't great. Got an okay day out of Cam Holden, wasn't great. Had 8 turnovers. In their current situation, they need those top 3 guys to play really well. That's just sort of the long and the short of it for them. So I think for Towson, a good spot now for them to at least be off the road a little bit. I mean, the schedule that Scarry put together. I mean, think about what they've been up to here over the last month, having gone to UMass, Penn, UNC Greensboro, the 3 days in Savannah, up to LIU, and then to Clemson. They have 2 road games, a neutral site and a road game before Christmas. But I think what they need is just kind of a breather as much as anything else, not in terms of competition, but just a few days to kind of catch their breath and get themselves situated correctly.
All right, it's time for our game. Can Patrick Stevens name the MLB teams this particular player has played for? And Patrick, our first one this week is tough, but it was a request that came in. Dan pointed out that his nephew played for this particular former MLB player because he's the head baseball coach at Severna Park, and I believe the first time we've ever had a former Terp make an appearance in this game. Only a one-time All-Star, did once pitch a no-hitter. 4 teams.
Oh, boy.
Yes. We'll talk about it afterwards. For Eric Milton.
Well, Eric Milton was definitely a twin, and that's what I remember him for a lot.
Yes.
Was Eric Milton a Philly?
He most certainly was in 2004. In fact, he had an exceptional wins-loss record. But listen to these numbers: 14-6 with a 4.75 ERA.
Oh man.
Yeah, in 2004.
Okay. So Eric Milton has 2 other stops.
Yes, he spent the next 3 seasons somewhere, and then returned in 2009 after spending 2008 out of baseball.
Okay. So he came back in 2009 to play someplace else, and he played for somebody in 2005 to 2007.
Yes.
Am I remembering him as a Pirate?
No, not as a Pirate.
Not as a Pirate.
Now
and
I'm going to see if
the
maybe
other
he
team
signed
that
a deal. Go ahead.
It's possible he didn't.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very possible he didn't. The other teams that I seem to think about him with, one is the Angels, but I think he pitched the no-hitter against the Angels. So I'll toss out Toronto, maybe.
No, so I thought you were gonna. I actually thought you might end up lucking your way into doing really well with this one.
Into the Reds, maybe here.
The Reds, 100%, and the other one, if you don't know who it was, it was the Dodgers. The Dodgers is where.
The Dodgers. Okay.
Of course, it was the Dodgers. By the way, it was not. He did at one point sign with the Yankees as well, but he never actually pitched for the Yankees.
Okay.
So I knew this one was
his no-hitter was against the Angels, right?
I'm trying to double check on that one right now. Hang on a second. No, Eric
I
Milton.
think it was because
was yes. Hang on. Sorry, I don't know why. It was against the Angels, indeed. Well done. It was indeed against the Angels. Now, since I knew that one,
I remember about
go ahead.
The thing I remember about the no-hitter is it was like an 11 a.m. local start time.
Oh, really? That's super random.
Because Minnesota was still playing football in the Metrodome at that point.
Oh, and they had to do both games. Oh man, how about that? All right, I knew that one was tricky, so we'll follow up with one that's far more simple. The guy that it's a strong argument for the Hall of Fame is back on the ballot. 4 teams for Scott Rowland.
Scott Rowland's 4 teams are Philadelphia, Cincinnati, St. Louis, and Toronto.
Very well done. Where's the schedule have you this week, sir?
Going to Howard tonight. They play Florida International. Then Maryland tomorrow. They play UCLA. Georgetown's conference opener. It's an open question whether Georgetown will win a conference game this season. They didn't last year. They've lost their last 25 games against power conference teams. They have Xavier in town on Friday. And then Sunday heading back up to the Mount, Robert Morris in town. In a matchup of Northeast Conference defectors. Mount now in the Metro Atlantic, Robert Morris now in the Horizon League. So chance to see some old NEC friends there. So a relatively light week as we're staring at final exams.
No question. At Discourse, D1S Course is how you follow him on Twitter. Patrick Stevens, always appreciate you, my friend. We will talk again next Tuesday, all right?
Awesome, Glenn. Take care.
That's Patrick Stevens joining us here on GCR. Let's get a tidbit. Tidbit is brought to you today by the print issue of PressBox. Of course, we're just talking about college basketball, and you can find Kevin Willard on the cover of this print issue of PressBox. It is available right now at your neighborhood Royal Farms, any of the hundreds of locations around town where you find PressBox. You can read it all at PressBoxOnline.com. It will only be available for another, I think, 10 days. No, not even 10 days. I think more like a week. Might even be less than a week. I got to be honest with you. I don't remember exactly what the date is. I do know, however, that we have decided on our Mo Gabba Sports Person of the Year, and I only know that because I am conversing with that person this evening for our cover for the next print issue of PressBox. We will be unveiling our best of issue, including our Mo Gabba Sports Person of the Year. Looking forward to that. So get to your neighborhood Royal Farms and get this before it's gone with Kevin Willard on the cover.
All right, so Patrick Mahomes, this is a quick hard-hitting one for you. Patrick Mahomes is now 10-0 against the Broncos, and he is the 4th quarterback in the Super Bowl era to have 10-plus wins without a loss against a single opponent. Can you name the other 3?
I mean, did they finish with that?
No, they did. I don't think they did finish.
So I'll say Tom Brady against somebody. The Jets, Miami.
Tom Brady. Try to guess the team.
The Jets.
Not the Jets. No.
Miami.
Not Miami. It's an NFC team.
That's super weird.
Yeah. So maybe he hasn't lost to this team. Now I'm thinking about it.
It's the Falcons.
It is the Falcons. He is 10-0. At least he started 10-0 versus the Falcons.
Mm.
Can't think of a time that he lost.
I mean, why would anybody? We can only remember one, Tom Brady Falcons matchup, and they didn't lose it. But it also was in the playoffs. I'm not sure if it counts. So Peyton Manning against somebody.
Not Peyton Manning.
It's Dan Marino against somebody.
Not Dan Marino.
It's Steve Young against somebody.
Not
it's
Steve
Joe
Young.
Montana against somebody.
Not
It's
Joe
Aaron Rodgers against the Bears.
That's a good guess, but no.
Seems like it should be.
Yeah.
It's okay. Ben
All right.
Roethlisberger against the Browns.
Both of them are retired. You guessed the team that this quarterback is on, but you guessed the wrong quarterback.
Joe Montana.
Not Joe Montana.
I guessed the team, but I guessed the wrong quarterback. Terry Bradshaw.
Go back to what your first guess was after Brady.
Andrew Luck.
Yes,
Andrew Luck against the Texans.
Not the Texans.
The Jaguars.
Not the Jaguars.
The Titans.
The Titans. 11-0.
I don't remember Andrew Luck dominating the Titans like that.
Andrew Luck killed the Titans.
That's
11-0.
really weird.
Then one more.
It's Brett Favre.
Not Brett Favre.
Drew Brees.
The team that Patrick Mahomes is undefeated against.
Patrick Mahomes. I already forgotten. The Broncos. Right. John Elway was undefeated against the Chargers.
Not an AFC West team.
Was undefeated against the
This
Seahawks.
one's random.
The Seahawks.
It's pretty random. Not the Seahawks. It is AFC though. It is AFC.
It's AFC. He was undefeated against the Browns.
No.
The Bengals. The Patriots. The
Patriots.
the Patriots were bad back then, so that's not
10-0. John Elway versus the
very
Patriots.
Good. Very good. Tidbit was also brought to you today by the all-new Ginsu Kamado Grill. GinsuGrills.com is the website. Use the code TAILGATE. Save $100 on your Ginsu Kamado Grill. Tubular brought to you by the Baltimore County Police Department. Join BaltimoreCountyPD.com. And again, if you didn't make it out to the event on Saturday, please stop by one of the Baltimore County Police Department precincts with your non-perishable food items and your unwrapped toys this week to help them out as they lift up everyone in the community. Here's what's coming up this evening, as we were talking about with Patrick. UMBC Loyola at 7 on ESPN+. Coppins at George Washington at 6 on ESPN+. Of course, the first World Cup semifinal this afternoon, Argentina and Croatia, 2 o'clock on Fox. Memphis, Alabama is a good one, 9 o'clock on ESPN2. The rest of the college basketball, find at glennclarkradio.com. A 30 for 30 about Jeanette Lee, the Black Widow, who I did a show with once from the Baltimore Convention Center. I don't even remember what the story was. There was a billiards tournament that was being played. I don't know if she was playing in it or she was just there doing an appearance, but the old ESPN Radio 1300 did a broadcast from the Baltimore Convention Center, and Jeanette Lee appeared on the show. That's my connection to Jeanette Lee. I watch almost any 30 for 30. I can't pretend like this one's got me all that interested, but I mean, hell, I'll watch just about any 30 for 30 they put out. Jeanette Lee versus tonight, 8 o'clock on ESPN. Caps Blackhawks, 9 o'clock on ESPN. ESPN Plus for Blue Jackets and Panthers, 7 o'clock. TNT, Warriors, Bucks, 7:30. Celtics, Lakers at 10. USA for WWE, NXT at 8. And most importantly, the Tyus Bowser Show with Devin Duvernay on Facebook.com/PressBoxSports at 7 o'clock.
Yeah, no reason not to tune into that because there's nothing. There is
all right.
nothing.
How about we just guide everybody to GlennclarkRadio.com then?
Yes.
We can find it there. Very good. Yes, Mike?
Last Chance U basketball.
Oh, that's
season
right.
comes
That is
out
significant.
today.
Okay. I had that written down.
That is significant.
Okay.
It's the same school, right, that they were at before the pandemic?
I'm not sure, but that's what I'm doing.
Remember, the other basketball season was literally like a really good team out in, want to say,
New Mexico?
No.
It was somewhere random.
It was out west somewhere, and like they were rolling along, and right when the tournament was about to get started was when the pandemic hit.
Okay.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
Yeah, it was kind of crazy.
Yeah.
So I have
Season 2 of that.
I have been looking forward to that. I will start diving in on that pretty soon. All right. Tubular was also brought to you today by PressBoxOnline.com/offers. Again, go find out about the best offers available for you for signing up for sports betting right now at PressBoxOnline.com/offers. Thanks today to Patrick Stevens. Thanks to Joe Serpico. Thanks to Randy Cross. And to Brenda Frese. We'll get all of it up in the greatest hits section of the
archives.
Tab at GlennclarkRadio.com. Anything?
Rick Spielman will join us tomorrow.
From the 33rd team, former NFL GM. Had some thoughts about the Ravens. We will talk about that with him. Stuff and Things tomorrow on the program. Thanks to everybody at PressBox, all of our great sponsors and partners, including the Baltimore County Police Department, Problem Gambling, Glory Days Grill, Royal Farms, Casa Sin, Maryland Jockey Club, the Baltimore area Chick-fil-A restaurants, Grade 8's Memorabilia, the FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel, Maryland Vascular Specialist, the all-new Ginsu Kamado Grill, UMBC Athletics, your local Toyota dealer, buyatoyota.com. Thanks to Micah at Micah.Ernest on Instagram. Thanks to Griffin at Griffin_Bass. Follow us, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, at Glenn Clark Radio. Have a great Tuesday evening. Go Loyola or UMBC. Go Coppin. Duke sucks. Ohio State sucks too. We will be right back. Simply the Bets is next.